Hey everyone. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Usually we talk to apologists, but that's not the only thing that I do. I also do debates. I also do speeches, and I've got a couple of them coming up. And so I was going through them, and then I thought, why don't I share a couple with you? I mean, in time, I want to be able to share all of them on this channel, so why not? We're going to start off with my speech from the International Atheist Day of last year. It was incredible. We were worried about the rain, and it was cloudy and overcast when we set things up. A little bit of rain, we were thinking this might not work, but then things cleared up and the sun came out. And then this happened.
And with that, I'd like to ask you to help me welcome our next guest, Eric Murphy. He's an unbelievably good friend of mine. We don't have the same parents, but we're basically brothers. We may not be roommates, but that's as close as we are. He's the co-host of my show. He's the director of communications for the atheist community of Austin. He's an all-around great guy. I've run out of things to say about him, but I feel like I should say more. What I will say is that upon moving to Austin, in 2016. He might not want me to tell the story, but I don't care, it's great. Upon moving to Austin from California, don't hold it against him, in 2016, he came in, I don't know whether it was the first day or the second day, but pretty much immediately into the ACA and wept tears of joy because he had found his community. And that's all it takes, is giving people a place to show up and showing up yourself. And I think Eric understands that, and I think you understand that, and I think that you will help me welcome Eric Murphy to the stage. Thank you.
That's my best friend. Yeah, Eric, you're just going to go after Aaron Ra and Jim Helton. It's going to be great. Well, as Jamie said, my name's Eric Murphy, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Atheist Community of Austin. And I am so glad to be here with you today on the very first International Atheist Day. I am stoked. I'm a little humbled to be sharing this platform with some of the great speakers in the atheist community. Some of the people you're hearing today are some of the people who helped me realize that it's okay to think like this, that I'm not the only one who thinks like this, and that it's fine to say, you know what? I'm not buying it anymore. In fact, they were some of the first people I contacted when I was asked to speak here today. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. I really had no clue. But then I got some advice. Talk about what excites you the most. And the minute I heard it, it all fell into place, because if you know me, if you've ever watched Talk Heathen or listened to my podcast, you'll know that there's one thing I'm truly passionate about. One thing I talk about every single week. And the one thing that's brought us all together here today. And that can all be summed up in one word: community. We all come from different walks of life. We've all had different experiences and strive to fulfill our different dreams. Each one of our stories is unique. But there's one common thread. We all need community. Every single human being on this planet wants to belong, and no one likes to be left out. No one likes feeling alone. Socializing with each other is part of the human condition. In fact, it's those social connections that help define our happiness, our self-esteem, our overall health. Important medical studies have even found that a lack of these connections can actually lead to a shorter lifespan. We, each and every one of us, all draw strength from the presence and support of others. And that's what community means. It's a feeling of fellowship with others, something that results from sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. And that common interest is the one thing we're all here to celebrate today. At some point in our lives, we've all given up religion, whether we were born into it or indoctrinated with it. For some of us, the road was quick and easy. But for others, hell, for most of us, it was a very long and painful path. Some of us have made the decision, are still struggling years later, trying to cope with the damage it's done to our minds and to our psyches. But I think almost every single one of us would say that we are so happy and thankful that we took that journey. We're glad that we stopped believing in claims that can't produce supporting evidence. We're thrilled to have given up dogma and replaced it with science and critical thinking. We're relieved to let go of frightening concepts like hell and eternal damnation, and holy books that advocate slavery and the subjugation of women. But there's one thing none of us wanted to lose when we gave up our faith, and that's the sense of community that belonging to a church or temple or mosque used to give us. For good or ill, going to church every Sunday always gave us the comfort of seeing the same faces, sitting with the same people who shared the same values, people who thought like us and believed the same things we did. For most of us, those first few days or weeks or even months after we became rational thinkers, we were isolating ourselves, full of the fear that we would never again find a place that we could call home. And 50, 30, maybe even as little as 10 years ago, that fear might have been justified. I'm sure there have been many people throughout the years and throughout the centuries who've lived solitary lives because they dared question the status quo. Religion, in every one of its permutations, has always seemed to dominate society. You either conformed or you were cast out. So how many have lived their existence in a lie, claiming to believe in order to survive? We now know that community no longer has to be the sole dominion of the church. We've proven that we can build secular communities that are not only as strong as those religious, as those, well, I messed that up. Let's try that again, yeah? We've proven, love you too, Jim. We've proven that we can build secular communities that are not only as strong as those that religions offer, but they are far superior. Superior because no one is forcing you to believe in anything you don't want to just so you can be part of the club. You don't have to check your brain at the door and pretend to be something that you're not. Secular communities don't have books or traditions that segregate or claim with authority that living your life the way you choose is an abomination. It embraces people simply because they are that. People whose differences make us all stronger, not weaker. Now look around you. Go ahead. Look at the person next to you. Behind you. Look at the person in front of you. That is your community. That's where you belong. Right here. Each and every one of us present today is part of a great family. One that isn't just citywide or statewide. It isn't even national. My community, your community, our community is a global community made up of not just Americans and Europeans and Africans and Asians. It's made up of mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. And that's really all we are, sister and brother human beings, giving each other a place to belong. When I moved to Austin, I decided I was going to volunteer with the ACA. The moment I walked through the door of the Free Thought Library, I was welcome. I was home. Nobody cared what I looked like. Nobody cared who I sleep with, if anybody. Nobody asked where my parents were from. They weren't interested in the size of my bank account, and they certainly didn't demand 10% of anything. Doors and arms were wide open. And through the ACA, I've made more friends than ever in my life. True friends. Honest friends. Friends to laugh with and friends to cry with. Friends who hug me when I'm sad and pick me up when I'm down. Talking to you, Jamie. Friends who tell me in no uncertain terms when I'm wrong and then help me to be right. And it's not just here in Austin, not just Texas, not even just America. The ACA has members, volunteers, and friends in Australia, Brazil, Canada, Germany, New Zealand, Norway, the UK. Our community's huge. And it's growing. And it's growing fast. We may live far away from each other. We may not ever even see each other for years or decades or ever again. But we all belong together, united by a common belief and a common goal. And that alone makes us family. That alone makes us friends. As the famous Irish poet William Yeats Butler once said, "There are no strangers here, only friends you haven't met yet." And while I'm delighted to be here, to meet you all today, my friends, I started out here as a volunteer of the atheist community of Austin. And I'm now a proud member of the atheist community of everywhere. And I love every single day of living in it. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting. I was so nervous that day. It was not like it was my first speech. It was not my first time in front of people. And yet, standing there in front of the crowd, in front of the Texas State Capitol building, it was nerve-wracking. But when I got up there, the smiling faces and the fact that, well, I made friends that day that I still have today. It calmed me down and it got me through it. And it was an incredible experience. If you're going to be out and around the Austin area around International Atheist Day this year, please drop by and say hi, because I'll be there. And if not, see if you can start an International Atheist Day event in your local area. Definitely check it out. In the meantime, this next speech actually has to do with the Texas State Legislature as well. It's the Texas State Board of Education, actually. They, every couple of years, take a vote, and their votes have been religiously motivated to remove certain things from science and history textbooks. And this last time the vote came around, I was here in Texas, making sure that our voices were being heard. I spoke up, and here's the video.
Get that to staff.
That's my fault. It's mostly stuff I'm going to say anyway, unless you want to copy the 10 Commandments.
Microphone.
Sound better? All right. Yeah, there's not going to be much in there except unless you want a copy of the 10 Commandments, but I'm going to try and burn through this as quickly as I can. I was pretty optimistic. When we got started, it says at the top of my paper, "Good morning, members of the board." Yeah, well, perhaps that. So good morning, everyone. Today I'd like to talk briefly about proposed revisions to high school and middle school textbooks, primarily the push to revise student learning expectations to include Judeo-Christian principles and biblical law as founding influences in our nation. The push that I've seen to include Christian stories as founding tenets to our nation is appalling. While I understand that many of us have grown up hearing them, teaching them as if they were notions, or as if they were notions of justice and democracy, where they come from, does our children a terrible disservice. Society existed long before the Old Testament. Even around the same area, Sumerian and Babylonian societies established societal systems with similar values to those espoused in Torah. Prohibitions against things like murder and theft included, yet those societies and religions are curiously left out of the proposed language. I'd like to stress that this is not nitpicking. By including one religion over others in our school textbooks, we teach the next generation that one faith tradition is in some way more valid than another. This is the job of parents, not teachers. Looking at the student expectation, I identify one. Not going to read the whole thing, don't have a whole lot of time. I'll say it's to identify the Jewish Ten Commandments for its political and legal implications. I challenge the board to justify the Jewish Ten Commandments. And in case you've forgotten them, I'll read them to you with the amount of time that I have left. 1, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. This is a direct contradiction to the First Amendment Establishment Clause. 2, you shall have no other gods before me. Same thing. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Still don't see where we've gotten to our American justice system. Do we see a pattern? Remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. Honor your father and mother. Oh, that's a nice idea. Number 6, thou shalt not murder. Finally, a law that's on the books. Yet still this is redundant, as prohibitions on murder in civil societies has been enforced as long as we've been able to record them, unless you count slaves, which the Torah accepts. Skipping on, I'm an atheist. This means that I do not have a dog in the race. I will not be teaching my children that one faith is better or worse than another. Instead, I will share that human societies are shaped by human hands. Our understanding of where we came from informs where we decide to go. And in your process of slimming things down and making sure that our teachers can be able to teach our children, I urge you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr.
So, did they take our advice? No, not even a little bit. But it's still worth being there. It's still worth saying something. Because eventually, there will be enough of us. We will be able to be heard. We need to keep religion out of government. And we definitely don't want motivated religious reasoning in our children's school textbooks. So it matters. Now, this last one, I will admit, is poor video quality. It was the Ark Encounter protest this last year, put on by the Tri-State Freethinkers. They invited me out, and I was so excited. But it was hot and muggy in the summer in Kentucky. And I stepped outside of my suit and went, nope, I'm going to pass out in this. So I did the speech in shorts and flip-flops. And now that I look back at it, I think, you know what? I should have worn the suit. I'm going to wear the suit next time. But I'm excited because this year I'm going to be emceeing that very event. And so if you are going to be around that area, definitely check out the Tri-State Freethinkers and see if you can make it to the Ark Encounter protest, because I'll be there emceeing. Until then, though, well, we get to see this video clip. Again, it was set up, it was windy, it was the best they could get together, and I debated whether or not I was going to put it up, but you know what? It's okay. And I wanted to share it, so here it is.
Next, we have Eric Murphy, came all the way from Texas, had to drive more than a couple hours. He's going to tell you, I'm sure, about his podcast and stuff. So just to keep it moving, Eric Murphy, everybody.
All right, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Aaron, for putting a little bit of space between me and Kelly. Holy moly. There's no way you can follow that up. My name's Eric Murphy. I'm with the atheist community of Austin. The show that I do is Talk Heathen. And I'm also doing speeches. I'm doing debates. I have a podcast called The Atheist Podcast. And I'm just really, really excited to be here. I got the opportunity to meet you and spend time with people that I care about. So thank you so much. And I wrote a speech, and I'm going to read it. So when I started this speech, I was a bit worried about the tone it was going to take. Several times I had to remind myself to stay neutral and subjective, because it would have been so simple to take the easy path and make fun of that museum and laugh at the people who come to visit. I kept thinking that I had to be reserved and respectful. After all, it wasn't their fault that they never learned about archaeology or how to evaluate evidence or even how to be critical thinkers like you and me. Maybe they didn't have the advantages that you and I had, all the things that enabled us to break away from the irrationality of dogma. Maybe they were never taught that it was all right to speak up when church elders tell you things that defy logic, or that it's okay to live in the real world and not some fantasy version of its origins and history. I thought it would be better to approach the subject with kindness and patience and try to take the high road and not resort to insults and derogation. And then I thought, fuck that! Stupid ideas don't deserve respect. Stupid ideas don't deserve to be handled with kid gloves, just because it might hurt somebody's feelings if you point out how utterly absurd they are. Stupid ideas should not be tolerated or endured simply because believing them doesn't really hurt anybody. No! What they do deserve is to have a spotlight turned on them. They deserve to be exhibited center stage where everyone can see just how crazy and laughable and ludicrous they are. They should be held up for ridicule and scorn every second of every day, because that's the only way we're ever going to get rid of them. That's the only way we're going to keep ourselves safe. And even more importantly than just us, it's the only way we're ever going to keep our children safe. Because let's face it, how are we going to keep growing as a society? How are we going to keep improving and advocating and raising the quality of life for all human beings if we keep allowing this kind of foolishness to exist, generation after generation? Don't we want to leave our progeny a better legacy than that? There's a growing movement in the nation right now to turn our country into a theocracy. And I'll be honest with you, that scares the hell out of me. That should scare everyone. Not just each and every one of you here today, not just every free thinker in America or even in the world. It should scare anyone who loves freedom and the right to choose. Anyone who cherishes life and believes in the autonomy to determine how we want to experience this life that we have. We should all be fighting this movement with every breath, with every ounce of strength in us. But how do we do that? Kelly had it perfectly. Through education. We need to get involved on local and state levels, working towards getting the right reforms. Textbooks that teach real science, not religious crap like that abomination over there. We need more emphasis on real history, not erroneous facts, but the story of who we are as a people, the things we've learned and the mistakes we've made. And more importantly, what we need to do is correct those mistakes. We have to reinstill a sense of pioneer and adventure that we've lost. We have an anniversary coming up in a few days. It will be 50 years since Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon on July 20th, 1969. 50 years. And in that time, religion has undermined that accomplishment. Religion has made it seem small and irrelevant and inconsequential, when in reality, it's one of the most significant landmarks of human achievement. And think about what that's cost us. Religion has taken our eyes off the stars and forced us to look backwards at a history that never really happened. It's refocused our vision on an ancient book that has no relevance to our modern world, if it ever had relevance at all. Right? Instead of opening new horizons, it's made the world smaller and darker and uglier. It's targeted our differences and separated us instead of bringing us together. We should all be celebrating this glorious rock that's hurtling through space. And depending on the day of the year, it's moving around 48 million miles or kilometers per second. I got it online. If I got it wrong, let me know. But instead, we're killing each other over different interpretations of a God that doesn't exist. I'd say that's the true definition of insanity. Steven Weinberg once said that for good people to do evil things, it takes religion. Well, I'll go a step further. For good people to believe in batshit crazy ideas like that museum out there, it takes religion. And it has to stop. Now. We have to stop indoctrinating our children with this nonsense. We have to stop being so accepting and keep holding the owners and supporters of that monstrosity accountable for wasting local money and resources. Money that should be used for drug rehab programs, medical care for the eastern part of this state, and education programs. We have to stop shrugging our shoulders and leaving it to others to make a difference. We have to learn to start saying no. No more. We have to speak up and fight back. And every little bit helps. Every time we say no, we're empowering the next generation of free thinkers. Every time we attend a rally or start a protest, we're giving someone something to think about. And it may only be one person, but that's okay. One person can change the world. You never know. It's happened before. So keep being the change that you want to see. Just keep trying to reach people, one human at a time. And if we keep fighting, maybe someday others won't have to.
You know, the funnest part about that whole thing was immediately after that speech, it turns out that myself and Kelly Helton have the same birthday, and it was right after that event. And so they surprised us by getting the entire crowd to sing us happy birthday. They're an amazing group, and I'm really excited to be out there emceeing. So definitely, if you're around the area, check it out. Next is coming up. You see, I have other speeches and debates that are planned for the next few months. And as they come up, I'm going to be sharing them on this channel. And it's because of you. It's because of you that I've been able to do it. It's not just my patrons. It's everybody watching and sharing and liking and subscribing. We popped over 1,000 subscribers, and I'm amazed. But we've got a lot more to go. So if you would like to support it, definitely share this video out. And if you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Eric Murphy. I just want to thank my I want to thank all of my patrons. I haven't been putting in patron levels or anything like that, and I know I'm going to be instituting them soon. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody who's been able to hop in and help out, even if it was a little bit. I wanted to thank Kathy, Rex, Girl with the Cane, Billy, Alana, Megan, Ellen, Ray, James, Kristen, Kitty, Nathan, Justin, Matthew, Jenna, and David. It's your support that's helping out. It's your support that's getting these videos together and is sending me out places so that we can do that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Again, if you want to be a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Eric Murphy. That said, we're going to be wrapping it up for this week. Until next time, do something good in your world.